All right. So thank y'all so much for being a part of the fundraising and sponsorship during the pandemic workshop. I know that for a lot of you, you have probably been going through so much with your pageant organization, not in a bad way, but there's been a lot of changes. I know for many of you with rescheduling, moving it from different venues, different dates. Some of you have had your title for well over a year, and it's just been a wild ride for a lot of people in 2020 and moving into 2021. And I know that as a pageant contestant, raising funds can be really stressful, especially if you find yourself in a position where you are paying for everything. I have a very supportive family, but I do know that when it came to a lot of my pageant expenses, even throughout college and into adulthood, those were my responsibilities. And, you know, even if you have a job and you have the income that could take care of those fees, I mean, let's be honest, who really wants to pay all of that out of pocket? Because we're thinking at the end of the day, almost having to raise thousands of dollars for your pageant expenses, and that can be really stressful, especially if you have other things going on like family or children, if you're in the Ms. or Mrs. division, or you have school expenses and you're not able to have a full-time job to take care of these things. So today we're going to talk about some ways for you to focus in on fundraising and sponsorship even during this tough time. And yeah, so let's just go ahead and get into it. If I have not had the pleasure of meeting you in person before, my name is Jessica Alexander, and just a little bit of my background. I started pageants in 2004. I was in the Junior Miss system, which is now Distinguished Young Women of America. I won Miss Black Alabama USA in 2014, as well as Miss Natural Hair and Health Expo Beauty in 2018. In 2015 and 2016, I was the state director for the Miss Black Alabama US Ambassador Pageant, which is now International Ambassador. And I moved on in 2016 to start Crown Chasers Pageantry, where I have been coaching ever since. I've been really fortunate to have ladies and clients go on to win at the local, state, and national level. But in addition to that, not only coaching to get to that level, but making sure that they have additional tools to help them along the journey. And for me, fundraising and sponsorship should be a major part of your pageant journey. And I know that there are some contestants who have the luxury of parents, friends, and family who can just slide them a few $1,000s to take care of their expenses. But as I shared with you, I did not have that luxury, and it was really important for me to get creative, get bold, and get my stuff together so I could take care of those pageant expenses, because it was important for me to be able to compete, but to also be able to enjoy my pageant journey to where I was not focused on money the entire time. You know, it doesn't make the pageant journey that enjoyable when literally leading up until the day of competition, you're worried about paying for something. But when you're able to craft yourself a fundraising opportunity or connect with local or national sponsors, it can alleviate so much stress. So that's what we're going to go into today. So we're going to be talking about how to raise money for your pageant during this pandemic. And a little secret I'm going to tell you is that raising the money during a pandemic and outside of a pandemic, you're going to find that a lot of the stuff is really similar. So even when all of this ends, if all of this ends, you'll be able to use the same tools that I'm giving you to focus in and hone on sponsorship and fundraising for years to come. So here's a question for you. What has been stopping you from getting sponsors or raising money? And I asked this question in my DMs the other day, or in my stories, and I got one response was that companies don't have money due to COVID. There's another response was that you simply don't know where to start. And another response that I got, being afraid of rejection. And we're going to tackle all of that today. If you have another that you have felt like it stopped you from getting sponsors, please feel free to throw that in the chat, and I'd love to address that as well. But these seem to be the main reasons why contestants feel as if sponsors aren't coming their way. Now, I will say that all of these are valid reasons. You know, due to COVID, a lot of companies have had to tighten up their budgets, and they haven't been able to put money in places that they used to for the past few years because of how things have been going. You can't spend what you don't have. Not knowing where to start is a valid reason as well, because a lot of contestants really don't know where to start when it comes to sponsorship or fundraising. That's why we're today. And fear and rejection is natural when it comes to having to reach out to someone for something. But again, what we're going to talk about today is going to help you alleviate any of these pressures if you feel like you're experiencing them. So let's go into the first thing that you need if sponsorship and fundraising is something that you're trying to do this year. There's a little motivation first. Even in spite of these barriers, still raise money this year, period. Let's go on to the next slide. All right, so this is the first step. I think that before it comes to me going to these companies, going to people and asking for money or asking for things, I need to actually be sure about what I need and what I specifically want to ask a certain company for. You know, a lot of times, and I'm saying this from experience, is that when I first started seeking sponsorship and when I first started reaching out to these companies for money or for products or services, I was just reaching out to them and just saying, well, whatever you can give, and thinking that that would be enough or sufficient, and it's not. What you want to make sure is that you are clear about what your needs are before you reach out to a company, because, especially in the time of COVID, when people have so much more on their plate, they don't have time to figure you. You have to be able to say, hey, company, this is what I'm reaching out to you for. But a lot of times, even before you have that conversation with the organization, you don't even know what you need financially, product-wise, or service-wise. So here are a few things that you need to make sure that you know, like the overall expenses or needs. You need to figure out, here are a few things that you need to have in that pageant budget that you might not have even created yet. You need to figure out what, your wardrobe costs are going to be. You need to figure out what your overall expenses to be a part of a pageant are. Hair and makeup, travel. There's so many expenses that go into a pageant. And unfortunately, what I've seen, especially with working a lot of contestants who might be newer to pageantry, is that you are so excited about getting your title. You're so excited about having this opportunity to represent your city or your state that you don't really count all of the costs that it takes to be a part of this organization, which is why you find yourself maybe a little stressed out right now. So you need to first and foremost list out everything that you will need that you need taken care of. It can be something as small as I need earrings or some pantyhose, to I need to pay this $1,500 registration fee. So right now I have an exercise for y'all to do. I'm not trying to talk this whole time, so I'm giving you a couple times to do some active work to get the ball rolling. So this is what we're going to do. I want you to grab a sheet of paper or take out your phone for notes, and I want you to write out the expenses that you have left with the dollar amount if you have it. I'm going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes, and this doesn't need to be exhaustive, but I want you to just at least start. Because a lot of you probably don't have a list of your current expenses and you really don't know how much you need. So write everything out that you have. Like if you've made payments on your pageant, then write out what the rest of your payments are. Write out how much you need for wardrobe. If you have to travel there via plane, train, if you're driving, you need to write out all those expenses, things you need. And even though your pageant might not be until June or September or might not even be until 2022, the earlier you know, the easier it's going to be for you to start breaking it down. So that's why I'm going to give y'all 2 to 3 minutes to go ahead and write out the expenses. And if you have questions, please feel free to shout them out right now while we're in between this break. But go ahead and write out those expenses real quick.
Hey, Jessica, this is Lauren. Are we supposed to be seeing like a PowerPoint presentation on the screen?
Yes. What are you seeing?
I'm just saying like just your wallpaper with like all the apps on it. I'm not saying a presentation.
Yes,
Oh
the same for me
no.
as well.
Well, I'm
Okay,
glad you told me that.
but I just wasn't going to say anything.
Well, thanks. All right, hold on a second. Y'all really had me out here with the
I put it in the
Can you
chat.
see it now?
Yes, I see it now.
Okay. I'll make sure I send over a copy of the presentation. It really wasn't too much wording on there, but I'll make sure I send over a copy of the presentation to kind of go along with the replay just so that you all can see that. But thank you, Lauren.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hold on now. Wait a minute. I mean, I was going to slide you a text message. I was going to be in your DM, okay?
You were going to slide a text and you were going to be in the DMs, but I'm looking at my phone and I see nothing from Twilly, so yeah.
No, listen, okay, look.
I'm going to let y'all concentrate on writing out y'all's expenses list, and I'm muting my line, so we'll talk about this later, okay? All right, so as y'all were writing out those expenses, do you think you have a better understanding of what direction you need to move in, or at least how much you need to raise? And before y'all answer that, I do want to let you all know that for a lot of people on this webinar, I'm really grateful to be here, but I've been in the pageant world for a long time, so I have a really great relationship with a lot of queens. So if you see me joking around on here, just know that that's just how I roll. But have you been able to, after writing out some of the expenses, do you feel like, okay, I have a clear understanding as to, you know, what to start looking for? Because a lot of times we're like, oh my gosh, I need so much money, I need so many things, but in all actuality, it's just like, okay, I can break this down a little bit more. I can ask a certain person for these things. So is anyone feeling a little bit clearer? You can just jump in.
I still, hi, by the way, Jessica.
Hello.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm writing down stuff. I feel a little bit overwhelmed, but it's beginning to be clear in a way what I need to do. Like you said, breaking it down is making it easier. But it's just like when the more I'm writing it down, I'm like, wait, oh my gosh, I have this to think about as well. But yeah.
Well, I know that the process at the beginning, when you actually do sit down and look at all the expenses, it can be overwhelming because, you know, let's be completely honest, pageantry is a big investment. There's no one that can be like, oh, it's, you just do this and this, and that's it. No, there's a lot that you have to consider when it comes to pageantry. So, once you have it down and you can see it clearly, it's so much better for you to have a clear picture of it and just kind of know exactly what you need up front versus trying to figure it out as you go. Because like I said, it's easier to break it down and to at least space out how much time you need to find certain things, to pay for certain things versus letting everything pile up. And then before you know it, you have a month left and you have all these things that you need to take care of, because that is going to be far more overwhelming than doing it right now. So my best advice for you right now is just take your time. Don't feel like everything that you're writing out has to be taken care of next week. But just think about the time in between now and your pageant and find a way to break down the activities, break down the expenses so that you're not stressed out at the very end.
Thanks for that, Jessica.
No problem. Are there any more comments or questions before we go on to the second part? No? All right, let's move on. So the next thing is that you need to be aware of who and when you're asking. I remember when I was Miss Black Alabama USA back in 2014, there was for me, I thought that if I posted stuff online, if I posted on Instagram, if I posted my GoFundMe, that everyone would see it and everyone would just send me money because, someone will tell you, well, if you have 5,000 friends on Facebook and if everyone sent you $1, then you'd be able to take care of your pageant expenses. It ain't work that way. And it's probably not working that way for you all either. You probably, and I'm not trying to say this in a rude way, but a lot of times we think that more people know what we're doing and want to help us than they actually do. And of course, everyone's going to like the announcement picture. Everyone's going to everyone's going to talk about how many people they can connect you with and different organizations are going to help you serve and whatever. But that just is not always the case for your pageant. So instead of waiting for people in your network to connect you with people or for waiting for them to see your GoFundMe or to send you some money via Cash App, you have to be a lot more active when reaching out to people. And this is why I'm very, very adamant about having pageant queens reach out to organizations versus leaning on their network. Even though the network can be great, it can work out for you, but more times than not, you posting your GoFundMe or your crowdfunding is not necessarily going to result in you getting a bunch of money from friends and family. Now, this is not always the case. There's some people who are able to put a GoFundMe out there and everyone runs to support them. But more times than not, and just in my experience as a queen and as a coach, I find that a lot of queens struggle when it comes to trying to get money from their network of friends and family. So when it comes to reaching out to companies for funds or for services, like, hair care or nails or waxing, or for products like earrings and makeup, I suggest going local. That's always a number one key, and especially in the time of COVID. I know a lot of people think that small businesses are a lot less ready to give out products or services or money, but that's what we're going to talk about in a second when it comes to positioning yourself to succeed. But before we go there, you need to find local businesses. And this is the reason why. If you're trying to get to corporate Walmart and get someone from the corporate office to give you a thumbs up on money or products or services, you have so many layers of chains of command that you have to go through. So if you start by going into your local Walmart and speaking to the manager, and they say, okay, well, I have to pass this up through such and such, and they typically have to pass it up through someone, and it's, typically 3 to 5, if not more people that these corporations have to go through, which is why when you're sending emails to these, generic email addresses, or even going into these major stores to try to get some type of traction, you're not getting it. I would say focus on local businesses, small businesses, because 9 times out of 10, if it's a boutique or if it's a standalone shop, the only person that you get to speak to is the owner. And more times than not, the owner is always present in some shape or form, or it's typically a phone call away that you can reach out to. Now, I want you to take out your pen and paper, and I want you to write down 3 people that typically sponsor, and you definitely have to craft it in a certain way that's appealing to them. But 3 places I can say I've always been able to count on. One have been realtors. Another one have been insurance agents, like your local State Farm. And I don't have a specific boutique, but there's always some little cutesy boutique that wants you to model their stuff online. And if you're looking for an interview dress or wardrobe for pageant week, you definitely want to go to a little boutique and, have them sponsor you. It has never failed with me. These 3 organizations, so realtors, insurance agents, and local boutiques are always looking for ways to market and promote. Now, as you're approaching them, you need to make sure that there's especially if it's a sponsorship, typically with a business like that, they're looking for more of a sponsorship. So you need to have something to offer them. But so, for example, if you're reaching out to a boutique in exchange for them giving you an item, you're going to post your social media X amount of times. Or maybe you have something that you can, do for them. You'll, go live, promote their stuff. If you have ads for your pageant, this would be a great way to raise ad money. In addition to your sponsorship, we'll make sure you have a full page ad in our national pageant book. So just think of ways that you can convince these organizations to give you funds or to give you products or services. Another thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is not waiting until the last minute. I talked earlier about how you don't want to wait until it's too late to figure out how much money you need or to figure out anything. You definitely don't want to wait until the last minute until you're asking for funds for your pageant. Again, these organizations, they have budgets, they have timelines, they have so many other factors that go into whether or not they're able to give money and not give money. And especially in the time of COVID, you don't want to be waiting until a week before your pageant or a month before your pageant to start asking for funds. And a lot of times, because you're fearful, you keep putting it off, or you keep thinking of reasons as to why you can't reach out to these organizations. But the earlier you reach out, the better chance you get of getting a yes. So that's why you wrote out the expenses you need, so you know how much you need. Now, you need to figure out who you're going to get it from. The earlier, the better. Again, the last thing that you want to do is be stressed out before pageant week. I mean, imagine like a week before having to travel for a national, state, international, or even a local pageant, and your hair's falling out because you don't have all the stuff you need, or you're concerned that you might not even be able to compete because you still have a couple of last-minute expenses that you have to get taken care of. Don't let that be you. Like right now, we're about to go into February. You know what you need. We wrote out the little quick budget. Now it's time for you to move into reaching out to these organizations. Do not wait until the last minute. The last thing about this is like Drake said, you're not the only one trying to be the only one. And you're not the only person reaching out to these organizations, which is why timing is important as well. And this is where a lot of people get frustrated, because you will hear a lot of no's when it comes to reaching out to companies. So I don't want you all to walk away from this presentation thinking that everything that I tell you that you're going to walk into someone's doors and everyone's going to say yes to you. Like, I've been getting sponsorship not only through pageants but for events that I host for years, and I hear no. I hear no sometimes more than I hear yes. But the reasons why I hear no is not because you're a bad pageant queen. It's not because no one cares about you. It's not because no one wants to support you. But a lot of times it's because people are asking before you do. And if you think that you're the only person, you're the only pageant queen that's reached out to this organization for something, you're wrong. And not only are you competing with other pageant queens, you're competing with other businesses. You know, one of my internships out of college, I sold advertisement for a local planner. Don't ask. But one thing I learned, I'm sorry, someone's phone isn't muted. If you don't mind, just double checking that. But one thing I learned is that even in selling ad space, that I was competing with other planners, I was competing with newspaper, I was competing with radio, I was competing with television, and now, you know, you're competing with social media. So the dollars that these companies have, they're limited, but there's so many people trying to get after them, which is why you have to be diligent and understand that, okay, I am looking for this company and I might get a no, but I need to figure out other organizations that are similar or sell similar products or services or have similar funding that I can reach out to. But you do have to understand that you're not the only person reaching out to these brands. So that's probably the most important thing, because I know that a lot of you just get really discouraged because you are hearing no a lot and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Just, you have to keep going, because you really are not the only person who is out there trying to get this money. But it's very possible. But again, there's a level of diligence that you have to have. So here's an exercise that I have for you. I want you to, over the next 2 to 3 minutes, I might give you a little bit more time if needed. I want you to list out 10 businesses that you will, not might, but will reach out to within the next 2 weeks. So I'll give y'all some time, and if you have questions, I'm checking the chat, or if you just want to chime in and ask, you can do that. All right. We are back. I know this was a little short break, but again, I want to make sure that I have enough time to get everyone's questions in and keep this at 60 minutes if possible. So I wanted to ask what types of businesses you all have. Does anyone want to share? Of course, you can in the chat or you can unmute yourself and share, but is there a specific company that you want to reach out to? I'm all ears.
Hey, Jessica, it's Danny. I really took to heart what you said about local businesses. So I wrote down a couple of the young women around here who got their hair businesses up. One place we have called Unshare Beauty, they are a wax and beauty alternative surgery place that is really up and booming, and some of my local insurance and realtors.
I love it. And I really want to also put out there that, you know, there could be two different approaches because we're talking about fundraising and sponsorship. And I probably should have gone into this at the beginning of the workshop. But when you think about fundraising, typically there's not necessarily any expectation from the person providing something. So there are going to be some people who you connect with, whether they're businesses or individuals who simply just want to support, and that's that. When you are coming to businesses from a sponsorship angle, the question at most companies, regardless if you're a pageant queen or not, and this is a tough pill that I had to swallow, and I'm just sharing my truth. I thought that I could just go in, be cute Miss Black Alabama USA, and that people are going to just know that I'm trying my best, and I'm serving my community, and they're just going to give me stuff. And it did not work that way. I remember I hosted my first fundraiser. It was a fundraiser, but I needed sponsored items to put the fundraiser together. So I did a combination of the two. And what I had to do, and I'm going to share the third thing that you need, I went to businesses, approached them one-on-one. That's the first thing. Actually, make sure y'all are writing this down. So the first thing is that you need to be able to you need to get in contact with people directly. Sending a little email or DM is easy for someone to delete. If I don't want to help you, if I'm not trying to hear anything about sponsorship or fundraising, and I see sponsor, fundraiser, whatever in the subject, or if I see it even in the letter, even if I open up the email, if I'm not trying to help or do anything, I'm going to delete. But one thing I'll tell you, as someone who's worked in sales and as someone who's gotten thousands of dollars in sponsorship for business and for pageantry over the years, being face-to-face or on the phone, because I know with COVID it's a little bit more difficult for some people to go into these stores. I know that right now, like in Chicago, I think we just are allowing people to like meet in person again without the police coming to shut you down. So it might be a little bit more difficult to be face-to-face with people. Some people might even use it as a reason to not have to speak with you directly. But do know that the more that you can have a direct conversation with the person in charge or the people in charge or the people who can connect you with the go-to person who makes those decisions, the easier it is for you to get that yes. A lot of people have these barriers in place like email, like secretaries, like assistants to kind of, you know, they call those gatekeepers. And that's the person who's supposed to kind of be the go-between between you and the person who's making those decisions. And if you can get over that gatekeeper, then the ease of you being able to get a yes is going to grow exponentially. But if you're just doing emails, if you're just sliding into DMs, if you're just, you know, passively trying to get some response, I can guarantee you that you probably won't, unless you write one heck of a letter, one heck of an appeal to this company. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to look at it and it's going to go into the trash. And like I said, I'm not trying to say that to be mean, but I just really want you to be a little bit more realistic. And when you are approaching these companies, I would say stop looking at yourself as just a pageant queen, but really start looking at it from a business perspective. these companies, if I'm going to give you $500, if I'm going to give you $1,000, if I'm going to give you a $1,000 gown or $500 gown, if I'm going to give you $300 worth of services for free, if I'm going to take your photos for free, what benefit is the company getting? So as you are approaching these brands, ask yourself, what's in it for them to help me? And it can be whatever you want it to be, but you need to position it for them. You need to make it easy for them to say yes to you. As I'm working with you, I'll post X amount of times on my social media. If you look at how influencers on social media get these deals, whether it's product or get money for posting, they're able to let them know why they can do it. They can show, this is how many followers I have. This is the type of engagement I get. These are how many people I have on an email list. And I know that for many of you, if you are not entrepreneurs, you may not have those things in place yet, but you really need to start thinking about it. Regardless of where you are professionally, you need to start thinking, before I reach out to this company, how are they benefiting from working with me? And don't think that because you don't have a lot of the things that a social media influencer has, that shouldn't stop you from approaching someone. If there's a company that you want to work for or that you want to have give you funds, products, or services, you still need to craft something. And of course, it's difficult for me to do any examples because there's so many different backgrounds on this call, but that's something that you need to have in mind. And just know that regardless of where you are, you have something to offer. Don't think that, oh, well, I'm just a student or I'm just that. You're not. You are a title holder. You have assets that you can provide. You just need to tap into them and be confident as you're presenting them. So regardless of where you are, you have something to offer. You just need to make sure that you're able to confidently share that with the person that you're asking for money, products, or services from. Because like I stated earlier, you're not the only one asking, and they need to know, okay, this is the girl I want to go with. I know that if I give her this, then she's going to give me this in return. We both win. And that's what you want. You want both to win. So let's move on to the next part of this, which is going to be the things that you're going to need. You can go ahead and write this down, screenshot it however you want to, but you'll need some type of intro letter. And this basically is just introducing yourself, introducing the pageant system, and sharing what it is that you're looking for. Those are just the main 3 points. You can flesh it out however you see fit, and of course, based on who you are, your system, the things that you're looking for, that's how you want to draft it. Of course, it changes for everyone, and I do have a template that I can share as a part of a bundle package. I'll share a little bit more information about that towards the end. But you want to have an intro letter. Even if you do get these people on the phone, you want to have some material that you can follow up with them. Let them know, like I said, who you are, your pageant system. And this is a good thing because there's so many different pageants out there. You need to, I always say highlight what your pageant is doing and highlight what you're going to get if you actually win that pageant or some things that the pageant has done. So, for example, when I competed for Miss Black USA, even if you go to the website right now, they have a statistic sharing that they provided, I think, like $500,000 in scholarship. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But just something like that. Over the X amount of years that this pageant has been in existence, provided this amount of dollars or this amount of opportunities, and I'm representing this city and looking forward to representing at this pageant. So you need to craft your letter. You need to craft, the things that you're doing with the pageant system, talk about your platform, and then go into your ask. So that's pretty much how it should be broken up to the intro, pageant, ask, and a little bit about you. Also, I would suggest creating some type of template. If you are either you can do a fundraising template and you can do a sponsorship template. With a fundraising template, this is how I've done it for a couple of clients. I would say, you write your letter out, you write your template, and you just share how they can support you and where they can support you. You know, do you have a Cash App? Do you have a GoFundMe? Do you have a PayPal? Do you have a checking account or accepting checks? Like, how can people support you? And with the sponsorship template, it really needs to go over, is really going to be based off of what you're looking to get. So that's a little bit more, specific to what it is you're doing. So that takes a little bit more time. There's no like general sponsorship for pageants that I would suggest, but I would say that you can start with how much you're asking for or what you're asking for and whatever asset you're providing in exchange for that product, service, or funds. Another thing that you need, as I stated earlier, is you need the contact information of the person making the decision. It's good to have that generic info at whatever.com, but that typically gets, that doesn't get paid too much focus to because it's going to a general email account versus if you can directly get into the inbox of the person making the final decision and have that conversation. You can get that phone number and have a phone call. And I know that phone calls are intimidating for a lot of people, and it might seem just easier to send a text, or hopefully don't send a text. I wouldn't suggest that for initiating contact with anyone, or sending a DM or sending an email. But if you can get that person on the phone and have a conversation, a lot of times they just need to hear that passion, they need to hear your plan, and you need to be able to deliver it to them quickly so they can give you some next steps versus you getting brushed off because it's an email. The last thing that you need, and I say this, is a little bit of gumption. And by gumption, I mean you need to have some perseverance, some diligence, some excitement about what you're doing, because as I stated earlier, you are going to hear a lot of no's. And I'm pretty sure the reason why you're on this call is because you've been getting more no's than you want, and you feel like, okay, what do I do now? But you have to be consistent at doing that. Like, you wrote out those 10 businesses. Even if you reach out to all 10 of those businesses and every single person says yes, go back to that list and write out 10 more businesses. In fact, what I'm going to challenge you to do is set yourself a goal for a number of businesses that you will reach out to every single week. And I'm not saying that you need to do like 100, but let's just say your goal for the month, I want to reach out to 50 businesses. And that might seem like a lot until you break it down. Let's do 60 because it's even, math. So let's say 60 businesses a month. There are 30 days in a month. That's 2 businesses a day. And you don't have to do this every day, but you can just say, okay, well, that's 2 businesses a day. That's around 14 a week, 14, 15 businesses a week. I can do this all on a Friday, or I can break this up into 3 to 4 days and do this because because it's overwhelming to me. But if you learn how to start breaking down everything into smaller goals, you'll find yourself being able to do it a lot easier. And I will tell you that when you first start doing this, especially if you haven't done it before, you are going to be nervous. You're going to call these people. Your voice is going to be shaking. You're probably not going to know what to say. Someone's going to throw you a curveball because they're not going to respond the way that you thought they were going to respond. And you're going to be kind of stunned. And, you're going to feel like, oh, man, I messed that up because I wish I had said this, but I didn't. And the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. I promise you that. Because I'm about to start ramping up my sponsorship calls for events, and I have some other stuff going on this summer. And because it's been a while since I've done any sponsorship calls, I know that it is going to be, trying to get back on the bicycle again. But here are 2 more tips for you as you're going into that. Don't overthink things. Don't overthink things. I don't know why I can get that word out. Don't overthink things. Don't put all that pressure on yourself to be perfect when you are reaching out to these different organizations. Remember that you're a human being capable of making mistakes. This is why you need to prepare in advance. So that's why I'm saying know exactly what you're asking for before you have these calls, and just be confident when you ask. Even if they, so let's say, for example, you call someone and you're asking for them to sponsor you some bundles for your hair. And, you say, hey, this is Jessica. after you get that contact person on the phone, I'm the reigning Miss Black Alabama USA, and I saw your company, wanted to talk with you about sponsorship, and I think that it'd be a great partnership for us to work together, and then go into that ask, I'm looking for bundles. And you'll have that conversation going back and forth with them. They'll either tell you yes, no, tell me more, I need more time to think about it. They'll give you your response, and let's say that response is no, or, we can't do bundles, but we can do. But the name of the game is, when you're having these interactions, if you're getting a no, to ask follow-up questions such as, when is a better time to ask for sponsorship? Even if they say, well, let me think about it, when is a good time to follow up, which is the next tip, because you don't want them to say, let me think about it, or I need more time, or I'll get back to you. Like, never leave the conversation in that person's hands. Like, make sure that you control the narrative as to how you're getting things going. And you don't necessarily have to be aggressive with it and come across like, a bulldog. Like, you can be assertive and still wear your crown at the same time, but you want to make sure that you don't allow opportunities to slip away because you just allow them to control when they would talk to you or whatever. Because if they do that, then they're probably not going to follow up. Let me check. I'll call sometime next week. If there's no definite date and no definite follow-up time, then, it's likely that they're trying to, in a nice way, not get back with you. So don't overthink. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to probably say the wrong thing, but just go ahead and cut yourself some slack right now. Doesn't mean that you're bad at this. It doesn't mean that you're never going to get any money. It just means that you're a human and you're doing something new, and it takes practice. It takes time. I got my first sponsorship when I was 17, and that was in 2004. So I've had a lot of time to refine a lot of my skills. And even now, it's, there can still be scary moments as I'm looking to get bigger opportunities. So don't overthink. Don't beat yourself up. Just keep going. And remember to follow up with everyone who does not say, if they don't say no to you, then follow up. The only time where you just kind of let it go is when they're like, nah, we're not helping. We don't want to. We're not into it. So that's pretty much it. Just to wrap up everything we talked about during the call, again, thank y'all so much. As you are in this pandemic looking for sponsorships, the first and foremost thing is to identify what you need and be clear about it. And then be aware of your time and be aware of the person that you're speaking to. So make sure that you are not waiting until the last minute, but that you are giving yourself opportunity to reach out and get back and forth feedback. Because a lot of times the conversation of money and products and services, it could take sometimes up to a month for someone to give you a yes. It can take longer than that sometimes. So you want to make sure that you give yourself time and that you give the company time so they don't feel rushed. Because if they think, well, I need an answer in 2 weeks, well, they can't help you. So be aware of your timing. And then make sure you have your things together. Make sure you have your intro letter, your template, know the contact information. And follow up, and don't put that pressure on yourself. But do you have any questions? You can either unmute yourself or type it in the chat. I'll open up the chat again.
How do we approach major companies? Like, I know for one of your events you had T-Mobile as a sponsor, and so what's the best way to approach them or to even attempt to go to them during the pandemic?
Well, I will say that with companies like T-Mobile and other major brands, the chain of command is, again, like I said, there's a longer chain of command. But with certain companies like that and banks, they have regional directors as well. So even if you don't have the direct contact information for them, I would at least contact a local person, you know, because even if you go into the T-Mobile store and ask a sales associate, you know, hey, I'm looking for sponsorship, they probably don't know where to start. But if you get in touch with the manager, they'll be able to connect you with like the regional manager, the regional marketing person. But when it comes to bigger organizations that have departments that are completely dedicated to like marketing and sponsorship, and I will say that as you are looking for bigger organizations, you're going to look for the person who has like marketing director or sponsorship in their title. Then that's going to be who you're going to be looking for, but you can start with that local manager or that regional manager who will be able to at least direct you in the right place. But you will have to do research. And I'll just tell you a quick story for all of you. This is not necessarily pageant related, but just a fun fact about me. I host a networking brunch tour called Boss Babes Brunch Tour, and back in 2017, if you're not from the South, you probably aren't familiar with the Regions Bank, but they're a pretty large bank in the South, and I knew I wanted them to be a sponsor at my event. And at the time, I was working in the promotional marketing industry, and I was doing some events for Regions Bank, and I found, after doing some very diligent research, I found out who the sponsorship contact name was. And as you know, Regions is easy to get to, but not to get some direct money. So especially the amount I was looking for. But I found her contact information, and I was working the event. I heard someone call her name and immediately was able to go directly to her. Unfortunately, the amount of money I was looking for was still a large amount, but it wasn't enough. So that's another thing that you also want to consider, is that a lot of times these larger corporations, they have sponsorship budgets, and they want to, you know, they don't mind paying for sponsorship because it's a part of their marketing. However, when you're asking for such a small amount, you might think, well, it's just $500, they can help. But it may seem like they're not saying it in a mean way, but a lot of times it's not enough for them to, if you're looking at sponsorship, for them to write a $1,000 check or a $500 check, they don't really see the return on that investment. There are ways to get it, but a lot of times you'll see that larger corporations are not looking for, you know, $500, $1,000, $100 grants and sponsorship options. They're typically looking for like 5-figure sponsorships and things like that. So that could be the downside of reaching out to some of these larger organizations, is that you may not be asking for enough. So I would definitely say, like, as you are preparing this, and if you are looking to go to larger companies, to be aware of the fact that if you're just asking for $200 or $500, even though that might be a big amount to you, when you're talking about a company that, you know, when they spend their marketing budget, they're looking at 6 and 7 figures, that's not something that's necessarily appealing for them to take the time to do research, so on and so forth. How many avenues of fundraising and sponsorship should we set a goal to reach? I would say set a goal to reach until you've gotten all of your stuff taken care of. So, you know, if you're trying to get expenses paid, if you're trying to get wardrobe taken care of, travel expenses, my suggestion is to go until you're done. Now, if you find that, okay, this is enough, I've got my family, or I've got something saved, and I just want to get it taken care of and be done, that's your prerogative. But I would say go until you can't go anymore. But also make sure that you're being strategic about everything that you're doing. And the next question was, how would you go about using GoFundMe as another means of fundraising? This is my thing with GoFundMe. I think GoFundMe, as we've seen over the years, can be really effective for people if you're trying to do crowdfunding. But if you are looking to raise money through GoFundMe or any type of crowdfunding platform, posting a link to your social media and letting that be that is not going to get you the money that you're looking for. It's really important that while you are using crowdfunding platforms, or even if you have a PayPal or a Cash App directly to your pageant that's going to go strictly towards your pageant fees, even if you post it on social media, on Instagram or on Facebook or wherever you are, doesn't mean that everyone's going to see it, and it doesn't mean that everyone's going to click it and give you any money. So my suggestion is to reach out to people directly. And that's what a lot of people do not do, is you post it and you assume that everyone saw it, and because they didn't help, they're either hating on you or they don't care or they're jealous. And that's not the case. And I've heard these things before, but sometimes you have to check yourself. Did I do enough to make sure that I got what I needed from whoever? You know, did I put enough effort in? And if you're asking somebody to give you money, it doesn't matter, you know, what it's for, you know, at least on your end, you do everything that you can to make sure that people can help you. But posting once to social media or a couple of times is not the most effective way to get money or to get any support. You need to be in people's inbox. And I'm pretty sure if you go through your phone right now, you probably have hundreds of people that's in your contact list. Have you told them that you have a pageant? And I'm not saying this directly to the person who asked the question. I'm saying this to everyone to consider. Did you ask them for support? Did you tell them that you were competing, or did you just assume that they knew because you posted it online? That's literally the most dangerous thing that we can do, is assume that people know and get mad when no one helps. But the whole time, you never even took the time to send them a text message or to call to ask if they could support you. You probably have, you know, I'm speaking to all of you, you probably have between all of your social media platforms at least 1,000 people that you could reach out to, who you're either friends with on Facebook or people who follow you, that you could reach out to, who are friends and family, who probably wouldn't mind giving a couple of dollars to your Cash App or to your GoFundMe, but you just never asked them. You just posted it online and assumed that they would do it just because they saw it, and that's just not how life works. Because I can promise you that you've probably seen something online and got a text message or saw something else that was more interesting, and it completely slipped your mind. It was no longer a priority for you. So I'm just throwing it out there because it's just really important for you to know that as you are going out and doing these things. You as a pageant queen, you know, I know that traditionally, you know, pageant queens were regal, were this, were that, and that's all good and well, but you really do have to start looking at yourself as a business when it comes to you getting money and funding for your pageant. You cannot be passive if you want to see results. And that's the best tip I have for you all tonight. If there aren't any more questions, I will say that, and I wish I had a slot for it, and I'm going to send some follow-up stuff within the next 24 hours. But if you haven't heard of the Crown Society, it is an online membership that I host. It comes with monthly webinars that you can watch on demand, in addition to a monthly Q&A, and there's 3 different tiers for it. Again, I'll share that. It starts at $39 a month, and you get at least 4 webinars each month, in addition to some digital downloads. And the February content will be posted tomorrow, and you can find that information on the website. Also, I spoke about fundraising this evening. I'm putting together a bundle. It's going to be $19. It's going to come with 4 webinars and a budget list, and yeah, it's going to be $19. It's going to be a great bundle. I'll be sending that to you all as well. So if you need some additional help when it comes to crafting your letter, finding potential sponsors, and just getting a little bit of confidence when it comes to reaching out to sponsors or creating a fundraiser, it's going to be a great bundle for you to take advantage of. But are there any other questions? We're about to wrap up. We're a little over 60 minutes, but I just think that we have a really productive workshop this evening. If you are not following me on Instagram, you can follow at Crown Chasers Pageantry. If you have any questions about any information that was presented tonight, please send an email to info@operationevolve.com. If you have not scheduled your complimentary consultation, I put the link in the chat, but I will also make sure I send it in the follow-up email. But I'm going to do a last call for questions. And if there aren't any, I will say thank you again for coming on tonight. I hope that everything as far as your pageant training and sponsorship and fundraising goes as according to plan. If you ever need any support or help, you can always schedule a call with Crown Chasers Pageantry. So I want to say thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and I will make sure I have the replay and all the additional information I spoke about sent to you via email tomorrow. You all have a wonderful evening, Queens, and I will see you again soon for the next webinar.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you.